Managing your equipment is a pretty big deal in any contracting company. And the reason why is because more than 15% of your P&L cost every year are dedicated to the purchase, the maintenance, the repair, and the management of that equipment. Everything from tires to gasoline to the depreciation rates on these pieces of equipment, right, can cost you a lot of money. So if you think about managing that and even taking off 1 or 2% of that number for a $5 million business, it's significant profit to the bottom line. So what we want to do is walk you through how Aspire is going to help you manage those equipment. And keep in mind, right, there are 3 big things that you need to do with a software system to help you do that. Number 1, better communication. And that can only be enhanced by the data that you have in the system. Number 2, costs. You've got to be able to see the numbers in the system, which means how much it costs to buy something, how much it costs to repair and manage something. And lastly, of course, you want to maximize accountability. In other words, who has those pieces of equipment? Are they being used properly? So you can focus training, you can focus your mechanics, etc., on what needs to be done, and even influence potentially the future purchases of the type of equipment you use and don't use. So we're going to start right up front by looking at where equipment is managed in Aspire. Dana?
Yeah, absolutely. And we manage our equipment over here in the red tractor icon on the left side in the grass panel. And you start off at the top, and you have all these options within your list. To bring in and purchase a new piece of equipment, we start right at the top in the equipment area. And I see here that I've got all of my equipment listed for Joe's crew. In order to order a new piece of equipment, much like everything else in Aspire, I click the plus button. This brings up a new piece of equipment page, and I easily begin by adding in the information. So we'll say that we're going to add in a new Ford truck. I add it to my model as a Ford F-250 truck. And I can fill in all sorts of information that's important here. So the estimated purchase price, that's because I don't have it purchased yet. So it's an estimate, warranty days, starting mileage, model year, asset number once I bring it into service, serial number, engine number, which I can get from my manufacturer, and then a GPS identifier that helps me link it to my system in Aspire to give me real-time data. I can assign it to a branch. In this case, I'm going to bring it into my St. Louis branch. I can assign it to a division, and I can assign it to a route. I'm going to give this truck to my Joe crew leader route. I'm going to save that. And there's my F-250 truck. I can go to the info tab. I've got some additional information I can put in there, like my financing bank, plate number, gross vehicle weight when I get it pulled into my system, the pay schedule, renewal date, and the dealer. Up top here, this becomes available once I actually purchase and bring the vehicle into my business, which I do down in the bottom right-hand corner at the gear. I click the purchase button. It asks me the purchase date and the final purchase price. And by clicking save, I have brought that truck into my business, and it is now available for me to add certain information like fuel is gas, depreciation type. If I purchase the service plan, these are custom notes I can add to the system. And I can mark it as in service. So now this truck is rocking and rolling, and it's ready to be used by Joe crew leader. And I can add in the services that I need to add into the truck. All right. And because I tied it to my equipment model of F-250, I have pre-built my change oil, my rotate tires, and my transmission, which are all a preventative maintenance service package that is assigned to my F4 250 truck. This is to help my mechanic understand the things that need to be done in a routine preventative maintenance package so my vehicles stay with the value that I purchased them with along the depreciation line, and so they stay in service for my crews to use to keep cash flow coming in the door as they complete their work out in the field. Moving into Joe Crew Leader's bucket, I see that I've got his blower, his line trimmer, his mower, and the trucks that we have for him. Some disposed, some in service. When Joe Crew Leader is out in the field, he sees the same equipment. So as Joe Crew Leader accesses the Aspire mobile app through his device, he sees this interface. And when he comes down to his equipment, he has some options here. So he's got his piece of equipment on this list. He's got his trimmers, his mowers, his trucks, his blowers, everything he needs to accomplish his work in a day, as well as everything he needs to reflect and communicate back to the mechanic at the shop. So as I go to bring my F4 250, I then have the option to ask for services to be completed on my truck. I could have an engine problem. I could have an oil leak. If it was not my truck and it was the string trimmer, I could replace or request to have to replace the trimmer head, a spark plug. If it's my mower, I could request the blades to be sharpened. All of these pieces of information are derived from a service tag that can be customized in my system. So speaking to the communication piece, my mechanic and my operations managers have the ability to design service tags for my crews to request of their equipment in order to keep them moving productively through the day. For my truck, I'm going to actually move on to the mower and request that my blades be sharpened. I can easily input a note that tells the mechanic why it is that I'm requesting this service. Spring has been wet with rain, had to double cut many properties. Please sharpen the blades on my mower. I can also add in the number for the piece of equipment. Even though it's reflected up here, I can tie it together with my note. And by clicking this button down here, I send that service tag off to the mechanics department. With that, I can go about my day and continue doing work out in the field.
So what we have done so far is the accounting people are in the loop. The operations people are in the loop. The crew is accountable. The crew can also interact with the shop. And now everything goes back to the shop, right? Now we're looking at what needs to be done in any particular day to schedule the shop so the shop is most efficient. Number two, to see how much money we spend every day in the shop, whether it's preventative maintenance or it is fixing and service repairs. And then from there to see how much money we spend every week based on the same stuff coming from multiple crews, so we can start to affect that cost and start to put money on the bottom line versus into equipment.
So back at the mechanic shop, I can have a dashboard as a mechanic that monitors my requested services from the field. So I am looking at my home screen. I see that today, 3 services have been requested. I click into my dashboard dial, and there I see that Joe has requested that his blades be sharpened. So I see the date, I see the technician. I can change that and make sure that I'm giving it to the right tech at all times. I see the cost is 0. I can add that in. We're not going to actually purchase anything because we're just sharpening blades. So that can stay at 0. And here I can say I'm going to use an hour of time. I can see that the reason for me doing this service has been printed here by Joe. So I can stay in the loop and he's telling me why this has been necessity. Because maybe as the service mechanic, I want to make sure that I'm keeping on my schedules, and this is out of schedule. So I've got the need to do it and I've got the reason behind it. So to speak to that communication, I want to make sure that I'm always talking to my people. They're telling me what they need and I can provide that service. With that, I hit save and I've now completed that service.
This is what the mechanic's doing all day long, right? They're doing preventative maintenance, service, request, schedule, right, all day long.
That's correct. In my services due list here, I can look at mechanic services due. And so on this list, this is showing me all the things that are in need of service. A handful of trucks. You can see they're in red because they are past due. So red is telling me that this work needs to be done immediately to stay on track and to keep our equipment moving forward. So the equipment services due list is constantly updating with all the equipment in my company that is requiring preventative maintenance or a request from the field to keep things moving forward. Next to my requested service dial as a mechanic, I also have my services due this week. So between the 3 that have been requested and the 9 that are due, I've got 12 services that are on my plate to complete that I can click in and view by looking at the dashboard dial. So I've got a couple of Hondas, some John Deeres, some Kubotas, and my trucks, maybe an engine problem, maybe an oil leak, something to look into, the due date, the reading date, the current meter, and the tag assigned to it. All pulled right from the dashboard dial sitting on my home screen that I can access as the mechanic out in the shop by turning on my Aspire system and seeing my dashboard dials first thing in the morning and planning out my day accordingly. As the operations manager, I have the ability to look at my mechanic costs and my mechanic completions thus far. So this list is showing me the actual cost and time and the services carried out by date by technician with a ledger of service cost total at the bottom, service hours total at the bottom, the route, the asset number, the class, and finally the service type at the very end. This gives me my visibility as a manager to understand what exactly my mechanic is able to accomplish and if he's keeping up with the maintenance and the services required to keep our business and our equipment moving forward. And now I have broken it out, not just by date, but by route as well. There's Joe, there's the enhancement crew, there's Joe again. So Joe is getting a lot of stuff done and he's communicating well with the mechanic, and those two are moving forward correctly with their trucks and their mowers, maintaining the necessary services. So as the accountant, I can talk to my manager and ascertain just exactly what our mechanic is doing, what it's costing us, how that's affecting our crews. To Kevin's point, if our crews are handling our equipment correctly, if there needs to be a discussion with Joe because his equipment seems to need quite a bit of attention. All of this stuff can be looked upon in a report in the equipment module along the lines of these options. In addition, we can load fuel rates and get fuel cost report. Here's that truck we just put into service at the bottom, purchase cost, service date, monthly cost, accumulated depreciation. There is no disposal date or disposal amount, and the asset life in months should be about 8,600. So that's the depreciation report, and that is the truck that we purchased today and is already listed and logged with its accurate monthly costs and accumulated depreciation.
So we've done quite a few things here in a short period of time, right? We started with the idea that 15% of your business's cost every year are going to be equipment related. Saving 1%, if you're a $5 million business, is the equivalent of $50,000. Saving 2%, obviously, $100,000, and certainly possible within the realm by focusing in on the communication, the cost, and the accountability that goes along with all the money you spend on this equipment. So Aspire is going to allow you to do all that, track that, manage that, give you a lot of flexibility, as Dana showed you, to do all that. So I could go from something as simple as what did an individual and unique cost of equipment cost me in a year, what's its history, all the way up to how much did one crew use, how much did they cost me from an equipment point of view, and then even to see and look into shop organization, workload, and shop and equipment cost, all done through the system in Aspire.